Welcome to the Master Your Energy podcast with Harry Massey, where we discuss energy, health, and personal growth with the leading experts in the field. In this mini-series, you'll hear from the speakers of our upcoming Zenergy conference, a symphony of scientists, entrepreneurs, innovators, healers, and musicians coming together to grow the emerging bioenergetics industry this October in Denver, Colorado. Welcome back to Bioenergetics with Harry Massey, and today I'm joined by a really old friend of ours called Dr. Zulia Frost. Now, believe it or not, when I was still just about bedridden, and Zulia's business partner, who's an acupuncturist, turned up at our house. This is, I think, 24 years ago, literally 24 years ago, and introduced us to this Russian device called a Skenar, and then basically his name was Guy. Sorry, it was Guy Bekalik. He then introduced us to Zulia, who's basically, well, in my words, Zulia is the first, probably the only and best Russian doctor who introduced basically Skenar and what I would call Russian bioelectric therapy into the West, and then basically trained people in the US, people in Europe, people in Australia. Also became part of forming an American company called Intrex, and then also another company since then. So without that, I will let Dr. Zulia introduce herself. So Zulia, just give people a little bit of your background, and how about just starting with being a medical doctor in Russia? I think people would love to know that.
Thank you so much, Harry. Indeed, you are my oldest friend. We hit on straight away when we met. I remember 25 years ago, I was so surprised to see you. Yes, that part of my journey was very interesting because I was trained in medicine, in Russian sort of standard of medicine in Kazakhstan. And I worked as a medical doctor for some few years at the beginning of my career because I studied pediatrics and worked as a pediatrician. Of course, part of my journey was through me in the field of ER, emergency medicine. And that's where I actually learned quite a bit, because in Russia, you have to go on the scene of accident. The doctor goes, no paramedic. And so you see it all in reality, what it's like. You see all the situation. I think I've been almost like on the front line of a war. That's how I can describe 4 years of my life. It was very tough, but exciting at the same time. And that's where I learned a lot about how to actually act quickly, how to help people. And I love that part of my life. However, soon I found myself in the UK, in England.
You know, before we get to the UK, yeah. When you were in Russia, how did you get introduced to bioenergetic technologies, and how are you using them in Russia?
You know, that is quite interesting time. In Russia, those days, there were huge interest into bioenergetics. In fact, almost every medical doctor in Russia was trained to be an acupuncturist, because there was a huge, again, interest in this oriental concept of magical meridian system, and people were fascinated by this. And my mother, she was a medical doctor too. She was a neurologist, and she had the gift. She had the gift of being able to heal people with her hands. And cutting story short, he was treating many patients, give up smoking, for example, or using hypnotherapy technique. And for that, she was picked up in a research lab, and they actually tested her for this bioenergetic ability to heal. She was working in this lab, and where lots of other cool gadgets were there. You know, I would say that was sort of in the middle of 80s, and That was a big trend in Russia. I don't know, maybe it still carry on like this. And I think it was my first exposure to bioenergetic medicine, because my mother went on a course of how to use Reiki. And Reiki, as you know, became very popular in England later on. And of course, we had lots of various physiotherapeutic equipment in the practice where she was working. I was exposed to this at a young age, and I was have massive curiosity about this. Like one of the devices, I remember it was a very cool, like electro sleep. So it's a static electricity. You sit on this like a shower sort of device, and then it puts you to sleep.
Did it work?
It seems worked, because she was working with patients and she was able to help them. So,
Well, do you think it was like a big negative ion generator, just sort of like a waterfall of ions over you?
most likely it was. Those days I didn't really know much about this. So for me, everything looks very magical, some unexplainable. And few gadgets I tried before was very popular also to use for treatment, UV lights, where you can just, instead of taking pills, you will just sit in front of the gadget which produces UV lights, and you have a cone of different size. So you can point in your throat, you can point inside your nose, and you can target those areas which are inflamed with UV lights. You know, when I look back, I'm thinking, my God, they had such an advanced knowledge then in 80s.
Did you get introduced to the skenar when you were in Russia or once you were in the UK?
No, that's a paradox. I was in the UK. And how was I introduced? Very interesting. There was an amazing doctor, Dr. Robert Jacob. And everybody was talking about him, unorthodox methods he was using. And one of my friends introduced me to him. And I remember at the time I just moved to the UK. I couldn't even speak English properly, but it was fascinating for me to meet a medical doctor who uses various technology. And I went to see him, and I saw this incredible, it's like a mad professor lab with everything, different gadgets, different pipettes and different portions and everything. And he is also mainstream medical doctor. I love that. And I remember Dr. Jacobs asked me, do you know this device called scanner? And I felt so embarrassed because I didn't know. And those days, it's not like you get online and quickly research it. Those days, nothing was available. So by just interested in the play of the destiny, in the next few days, I came across of people who actually work with scanner device. And they said, well, we need somebody who can translate knowledge from Russia into English. So I'm thinking, there is no better person for this job than me. And that's how it began. It began by me going back to Russia, learning.
And what were your, the first time you used it, or perhaps you could tell us about, what results that you experienced in those early days that convinced you to actually do this? I mean, so you've dedicated 30 years of your life to it.
Yes, that's true. To start with, I must say that I had a tremendous trauma and injury to myself. So I was a patient because I was involved in a very deadly car crash, and I got very, very, very broken. And although I survived and I came out of it through, in fact, using natural lifestyle things like exercises, red light in the form of watching sunrise and sunset and other modalities, I was left with very debilitating pain. And that pain was sciatica type of pain, where pain was constantly throbbing into my leg relentlessly. It was very, very bad. So my first patient was actually me. I treated with a scanner myself. And so I used this interactive neuromodulation concept. You know, what was extraordinary that looking back, it wasn't a long time. I didn't give myself tremendous months and months. It was just odd few sessions. And it's just suddenly I found myself completely pain-free. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Cannot be explained. I knew it's good, but I didn't know that it would be that good. And then I had a neighbor who had a bad hip, and treated him for about 4 times, and he was start walking like a normal person. And I'm thinking, this is unbelievable. I have to do something about this. I have to give this knowledge to people. So I set up my own practice, and I was helping lots of people over the period of time. And that became my mission in life,
What's the backstory of the Russians discovering? I mean, I know it was discovered in the Russian space program because they wanted to, basically, they didn't want to take medicines up into space because of the recirculating of urine. I know that part of it, but how did they work out that it could be done electrically? Like, what was the research and ideas that led them to this device?
The idea came from Alexander Karasov. He was a medical doctor, but also he studied in Radiotechnical University in Russia. And he wanted to help his sister, really, because she was ill with something. I think he was explaining to me that his thinking behind was to, as I said, that was era when we were all fascinated by Oriental medicine. And he looked at the concept of Tibetan tapping technique. When you tap the meridian, and you can increase the flow of energy within the meridian, yes. So he thought, if you can tap with fingers, why can't you tap with electrical pulse, being radiotechnical engineer? So he created the first generator, which was pulse generator. And for that, he won the government award.
And just a simple DC pulse with no biofeedback?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That was the first step. And at the time, government was looking solution, because the cosmonauts used to come. Those days, they were not friends with Americans, so they couldn't get the shuttle.
They're best friends now.
That's exactly. The point is that the cosmonauts used to stay for many, many months. And you know how space is unfriendly for human body, with zero gravity, with the
rays, X-rays,
radiation, etc. So they used to come back, and when they hit the earthly gravity, they were so heavy. And the biggest problem of all, when they were up in space, they couldn't really digest properly food because their lack of gravity. And you think that this function should be easy, but when you're in space, it's like a big surprise all over.
And so were they getting results on the initial tapping part?
I don't really know this part, but I know that the government was actively seeking for solution for this. And in Russia, the research work like this, the government set the goals, and some research institution come with solution. So Alexander Karasov's solution came, and he won the awards for that. And since it was taken with the space research, possibly to help the cosmonauts like this. And then, of course, there were a contribution from another 4 or 5 engineers who contributed by creating biofeedback. They contributed by creating the, readings which you can take and measure the impedance, and so on. I mean, there was a team efforts. And as a result, they were left with the beautiful, beautiful technology, which, suddenly they found a perestroika happened. And perestroika, it was literally a collapse of Soviet Union. And once you have this collapse, economical and structural collapse, they needed to commercialize this invention. And that's where lots of efforts came to this, to get registration from the government, to take it to the medical professionals. I sort of came up at that time. I really, really loved the invention. I still do love it. And I think my contribution would be considered to learn and translate the knowledge for the West, which spent years to digesting it and understanding the technicality and also clinical applications for this technology. Because in the West, the medicine operates in a very different way than in Russia.
Well, I remember when I first met you, and you said that you don't, let alone you don't take medicines. You said you don't take supplements, anything like that. And well, at the time, I'd been bedridden for years at that point, and been seeing a nutritionist, and I was eating, the most stringent diet and taking my selenium, all these vitamins and minerals. And obviously I was a very strong believer in the biochemistry approach. And here you were saying, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. And you could basically just through I say neurofeedback, but it's sort of a slightly more complicated, but basically through talking to the body's nervous system, you can directly communicate to the body's healing system and just correct all these areas energetically. And it was a very foreign idea to me at the time, and it's probably very foreign to some, people are very heavily vested in the chemistry world. But I guess in your words, you must have thought about this, but why, like someone might say, be so-called deficient in selenium, which is a reason behind some certain symptom, or that might be related to thyroid or something. Yeah, why do you think that's not really true? Because you can just treat directly on the thyroid and you'll regenerate the thyroid.
Well, it's a very big topic you open.
I know. Well,
yes,
that's what we're here for.
I just want to say that my personal discovery was people can take as much supplement as they want to, and they may never heal because fundamentally there is no resources of energy in the body. From my point of view, you need to provide body with physical, tangible energy, yet this probably intangible energy because you don't see it. Yes, the body generates the electrical currents. The body generates ATP.
Yeah, I might put it slightly different. I think in the end the body has the energy. It's more like you have to unblock and basically untap the innate energy that is in the body, because like you said earlier, tapping on meridians. If a meridian or an energy channel is blocked, you're basically blocking or distorting that control system, and then energy becomes inefficient in the body. And if it's inefficient, you can't heal. But in the end, if you can unblock the inefficiency and make it efficient, the energy is actually there. I mean, that's how I view it at this point. I know what you think.
Yes, I agree and partially disagree, because there are two concepts. One, of course, is what you're talking about, that the energy is not circulating efficiently, and there is a blockage for physical energy, but also for informational aspect of energy. So they consist of this. But some people are really depleted because on a basic physiological level, they cannot absorb the nutrition they get it. Yeah. It's kind of get it through the body. So if you cannot break down food and extract nutrition from that food, you will be depleted, and so your potential, your body energy is also going to be very low. So you need both. You need generate that energy. I absolutely agree with you that if the body informational pathways are blocked, you won't be able to.
You won't be able to absorb the energy. It's 100% true. You get depleted, but by making it more efficient, you're then able to recharge. I mean, from my point of view, actually, I would say you're exchanging energy with the environment, and eating nutrition, breathing, sunlight. All these things are sources of energy. A normal person whose control system is efficient can get enough from that normal environment. Obviously, if you're sick, you can't. And I mean, there's a couple of ways. Like, you can do nice gentle walks, you can go in light beds, you can do breath work while you're doing all these things at the same time. But anyway, back to you.
So yes, we agree that fundamentally flow of energy is a problem. And of course, if you use this neuromodulator or neurostimulation modality, you can work with energy in the body. You can unblock. Because let's say in chronic situations, the acupuncture points, which are points of the along the meridian, are actually blocked. They're not conductive. They don't conduct. They're supposed to conduct, but they don't. So if you use this particular method, you can unblock. It's almost like using a plunger through the meridian. However, we talk about the physical aspect of meridian, because I always believe there is a body, the energy flow as a physical terms of energy, but there is also a field, informational field, describing the state of the meridian, the quality of the meridian. So that is another blockage, which I must say, with my health, I found you solve that problem. Absolutely. And back to this scanner concept, I am kind of embarrassed to say that, yes, I didn't take supplements, yes, at the time, because obviously being young, diet is sufficient. Because for me, always the food was medicine. You eat well, you get your nutrition. And when even nutrition pharmaceutically cleansed out of the substance, out of plant, it loses that intricate property, because nutrition is like if you have a plant and plant is contains some medicinal property, it stayed in a balanced way in this plant. And when you start with pharmaceutical grade, taking the essence of it, it may not work in the same way like it works in a balanced way within the whole plant. That's why for me, nutrition is the best nutrition. It's eating a good, real food, which contains, like I would eat Brazil nuts for selenium, not necessarily take selenium.
Got it.
However, I would use it together with my gadgets, with my devices, because they would provide the energetic base for.
So we'll just go back to explaining how these technologies work, and it's both with Skinar and with My Health. And just for the audience, the Skinar is the original Russian one. The My Health one is from our company Ness-Energy for Life, but that is an advance on it, which we'll come back to. So lack of energy is the problem. How does the device help regenerate energy in the body?
In my view, it operates in two ways. First way is engage in first signaling system, which is nervous system. So the device placed on the skin, and it produces electrical pulse stimulation. It's tapping the skin. And of course, in the skin, what we have 5 nerve endings. And these 5 nerve endings send the information to the brain. And so we create the address of the problem. So let's say you have the inflammation in the shoulder. So you tap and you create the dominance in the cortex of the brain, which represent that shoulder. So by doing so, you engage your central nervous system in understanding where the problem is and how to fix it, because the body constantly trying to maintain homeostasis or balance, some kind of dynamic balance of the parameters, because otherwise we won't be able to survive. And it contains the blueprint how you should be. So when you receive information coming from the place, it's almost like matching blueprint with the original information with the problem. And then you have the brain, the orchestrator of the healing responses, starting the work, starting the healing process. Because lots of other gadgets exist on the market, and they also produce electrical stimulation. They also produce pulse, but they don't engage your central nervous system. In fact, often they block transmission of pain to the brain. So brain is completely unaware.
I think that's a great thing we should dig into, because, basically TENS blocks a nerve signal. That's why if you use a TENS device for pain, it blocks pain. But why doesn't AC, to describe it for people, basically a My Health device or an old Russian scanner, it basically uses a decaying AC signal. It's sort of, if anyone can see the screen, it goes like that. Why does that type of signal not block a nerve, and why does it set up two-way communication to the brain and back, and versus a TENS just blocks it? I the answer, but I shouldn't answer.
I may not be able to answer this simplistically, but I know Russian engineers spent years trying to figure out what's the best signal so you can kind of jump over the fence of defense from your nervous system, but at the same time make it very quick, non-damaging signal to engage the nervous system. I understand there is a problem, but it's very short time, so it does not.
So TENS is basically a bit square. So it's putting too much energy in a square form, and that basically damages, and it damages us so much it just blocks. Whereas if you do a very, very tiny little blip, the nervous system can handle it. A bit like a pinprick or pain. It's like it doesn't actually damage the nerves, but you feel it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and the impulse is exponential. So you could see lots of these impulses in nature. So nature already, if we mimic nature, I think we're always gonna get it right. Yes. So it's like the heart. You have boom, boom. Like a peak and then quiet. In the same way, it's just like getting through into the nervous system. So the unique combination of different parameters of the impulse.
What I thought was quite interesting, with AC, AC stands for alternating current, which basically means the polarities switch. DC stands for direct current, and they don't switch. But the direct current, by definition, because a nerve is actually unidirectional, like it's a different nerve that goes up to the brain as back out to the fingers. And the wonderful thing about AC, you can basically you can communicate in both directions, and I was thinking about that the other day, when you're placing it near the spine, where a nerve goes out and goes to the organs. Well, the wonderful thing about AC is you're sending a nerve impulse to the organ, you're also sending an impulse to the brain, and you're basically, resetting up the communication between the brain and that organ. Whereas if you attempted to do that with a DC device, it can't do it because it can only go in one direction. Anyway, I just think about that at night. That's
true, because AC is because, like you described, it constantly goes between plus and minus. It's capable to locally to stimulate that particular nerve. So you can, because it's provide also a very potent, high amplitude, high current pulse. So it's capable to stimulate enough. And if you start sending DC, you're absolutely right. It's going to go one direction, and God knows when it's going to come back, So what I'm saying is that if you need to stimulate the specific nerve, you need AC, because DC won't be able to do it. And the information you can use for information transfer, the skin is a medium, because skin has one branch of the nerve. It connects to the actual part of the spinal cord. It's called dermatome, but it's intimately connected with myotome, which supply the same group of muscles, sclerotome, same group of ligaments, and even organ, viscerotome.
So the nerve that comes out, if you're looking at spinal column, there's nerves that come out all the way down at, C1, C2, T, etc.
They all have their own distribution, but they all connected with these four structures. So if you stimulate the skin, you're going to activate all the structures. You're going to activate the muscles, you're going to activate ligaments, bones, even organ, because they belong to the same anatomical origin. And
I always wondered, I thought it was a function of the frequency, if I remember this right. It was, the lower frequencies penetrated deeper and the higher frequencies were more superficial. But you're saying it doesn't really matter because everything goes through the skin, through the nerve pathways anyway.
Yes, and you have strong enough stimulation to wake up in structures. And remember, we also can scan the area of the skin if we can find the most important point of low impedance. And these points will be associated with the damage because they associated with corresponding spinal nerve. I mean, this is like a
just to explain, impedance is a very fancy word that really means resistance for alternating current, but you can sort of just think of the word resistance as more common. And the super interesting thing, when you get an injury or some issue over an organ, you get inflammation. When you get inflammation, you get more water. When you get more water, you basically get more current flow, and that's why the impedance reading changes. And then, of course, the great thing when you have more current flow is when you put a signal in, it's going to travel faster and deeper to the actual area. Is that roughly right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why when you treat children, you can get results very quickly because they literally full of water because they have lots of layer of the hyaluronic underneath the skin. And the older people become, they dehydrated more. Elderly always have problem with colon and they lose water out of the body. So the skin becomes dry, but also inside the organs. That's why there is a less current flowing through the tissues. So in a sense, that's problematic. Also, I wanted to remind you that, skin originates, if you look from embryonic development, skin and the nervous system originate from one germinal layer. So it's one. So always look at the skin as the extension of your nervous system. So when you use this modality, you can always expect results because you engage your whole nervous system into their process, into healing process, and you can get results because of that. This is one aspect.
So just for people, for the biofeedback part of you, so the device is basically measuring impedance. Is there also like a second sort of component? Because like when you're looking at the decay of the wave, basically if you looked at an oscilloscope, it would, if you didn't place it on the skin, it's sort of this very tight, rapid set of pulses. But when you place it on the skin, and I believe, my assumption is, I haven't measured it on the oscilloscope. Well, we did 12 years ago, but it's been a while. Like when you place it on the skin where there's an inflamed area, that's basically going to lengthen the wavelength because the speed of transmission is higher. So you're sort of changing frequency automatically in relation to the impedance.
Yes, they will be changed to depend on the state of the tissue you're working with. So, of course, if you just stimulate the air, exactly like you say, you're going to see the train of impulses and they're perfect. They just like eventually dissipate, yes? But we're living creatures. We have all the processes going on and we have some tissues full of water, some tissues are not. So it really depends where you place on the body. There will be a dumping of the impulse. The impulse will be dumped and energy will be absorbed by the tissues, and that will determine how long the process what we're talking about dumping is going to be. Shorter, longer. The more inflamed, of course, the longer oscillation is going to be produced.
Got it.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about the second aspect of the energy aspect, which I believe is happening too. Because when we stimulate with AC, we really saturate the tissue with current. We literally, there is a lots of capacitance at that point. The current will be charged. And of course, any structure within that skin will receive electrical stimulation. But guess what? Underneath the skin, we have a really big network of connective tissue. And connective tissue, now scientists rediscover this fascia concept. So this connective tissue is semiconductive. So of course it's picking up the charge and it can carry on like in a semiconductive manner to the area of where it's needed. sometimes when you place the device in one part of the body, you suddenly feel that there's a little current flowing in the different parts of the body. Sometimes you can get it in the tip of the nose, because of there is an element of conductivity happening as well. So if you got the injury site and you stimulate that injury site using this modality, what you're going to see that you're going to contribute to current of injury, which always the body generates at the point of the breakage. Whether it's a bone, whether it's a ligament, whether it's a muscle, any tear will create a negative flow of electrons current. And if you start working with your device all around, you literally capacitate that tissue and contribute to this process energetically.
Got you. I was going to say, what types of diseases, conditions is this technology most suited to, or is it pretty general?
I would say if you use this device at the point where, it's of course best seen injuries or best seen in children with injuries, yes, simply because the manifestation is very clear. But really, I have seen it helps not just injury, but even common cold. Like people get virus, and I was able to use this modality to stimulate certain points in the body and help my immune system to be active. So there are some, from practical point of view, it's very, very versatile. It can be applied for a variety of things.
Sort of like having, say back in when we were saying at the beginning, the Russians wanted to do it so they didn't have to take a medical kit up into space, but it's that sort of principle. It's like carrying your full bag of pharmaceuticals and supplements, but you don't have to. It's all in one electronic device.
I personally believe in this, absolutely, like 100%, because 30 years of my experience with patients prove me that I've seen patients with, like, if you just throw any diagnosis, I can tell you probably that I have used the interactive neuromodulation on that. And so, because I wanted to see where it works, where it doesn't work. And it's very rare conditions when it doesn't give you desired results. And it's typically when either too late, so process is very advanced, or where there are severe neurological disorders which disrupts communication of the nervous system. Like, for example, motor neuron disease. It helps a little, but it never resolves it.
Got it. How many patients do you roughly think you've seen over how many years?
Well, it's about 10 years ago. I remember it was a bench of 10,000 patients. So
maybe 18,000.
Yes, yeah, way more this. Because I literally treat patients every day, even when I'm on holidays. If I go skiing, there will be somebody who just came off the ski slope, or massive bruises or everything. So I always go and treat people if I go.
But you haven't got any. Have you got any pictures that are accessible? Are they hard to find on your laptop right now?
Right now,
probably too hard.
I've got the presentation. I can email you with the different case studies.
Yeah, we could share it up on the screen. That'd be great. Well, we'll show for people watching on YouTube some of these things. So, could you just describe some of the more difficult conditions and patients that you've seen results with, and also what you did?
Well, there were a few patients who really changed my world, changed my understanding of this. And with some of them, we literally cried together when they recovered. It's just so emotional because normally you don't get people who come to you as a, routine visit because nobody really knows about this method. And I get people when they already tried everything and they come to the point of desperation and they say, okay, I'll try whatever. I try this strange Russian lady with this strange gadget. And then we start working. And of course, one aspect I must tell you is very important, because when people come to this point in life, they typically take a bunch of medication. And of course, medication will be clogging informational pathways even further. So they are masking the problem. If there is a pain, they would mask the pain. So it really takes me a while to get to the point when they are well enough and pain is less enough, so they don't need to take medication. The minute they stop with medication, their healing is like a rocket in the sky. So I can tell you a couple of cases where there was a woman came to me with severe pain. All started off the having sciatica pain, and it didn't resolve. She was, of course, very stressed with work, was very stressed in personal life, sciatica pain. And so they then, she went to see a doctor, and they did injection into the sciatic nerve. And unfortunately, injections make things much, much, much worse. So she was in screaming agony pain. And she received so much medication, so she came to me, and she was almost incoherent. And I remember I was traveling at that time, and I said to her, I can see you in 2 weeks' time, but you need to try to reduce a little bit medication, because that would be helpful. She didn't tell me she went completely cold turkey on medication, which shouldn't be, because that's not what I asked her to do. Nevertheless, 2 weeks later, she canceled an appointment. Why? Because she got appendicitis. So she went to hospital. They removed her appendix. And then a few days later, she showed up. But remarkably, she did not have appendicitis. So there was absolutely a trauma for no reason. For no reason. They just misdiagnosed and removed her appendix where she was in pain. And I personally think it must have to do something with this new neurological pain she was experiencing. Maybe she got like echo pain in that right side of her abdomen. So nevertheless, she came to me, and I gave her a big session treatment. I treated her, I found the points stimulated, and she felt pain relief. She went home, and then I saw her next time after a fortnight. And after fortnight, I come to my reception, and I see, and I don't, she's booked, but I don't see her. I see a young lady there. I was expecting like someone like 50 years old, and I suddenly see like someone 30 years old, and I'm thinking, that can't be her. And it was her. You know, what does it do for you? Pain. Relentless pain, drugs. She was so drugs. Her eyes was like really floaty. And suddenly she's a different person. And ever since we did with her probably about 8-10 sessions of stimulation, and you know, she completely resolved her pain. Her pain completely resolved. She went back to work. Everything, you know, she was very grateful, and I will forever remember.
Do you think tools like this can basically reverse your aging?
Absolutely. I mean, you work on energetic level. You work with energy, and when you help someone with that chronic, tremendous pain age you. I know it by myself, because I was in pain every single day, and when I stop being in pain, I feel fantastic. You know, after the trauma I experienced after my car crash, I shouldn't be flying in the economy class. I shouldn't be climbing the mountains. I shouldn't be dancing, for God's sake. So, but I'm doing it all because I feel fine. I feel fantastic.
You know, see, we've got the My Health device. What do you like about the My Health device over the Skino?
Well, it is a lot simpler than a scanner device to start with. I like the elegance, the way it looks. I like these 2 electrodes. I've got it with me. I like the idea of 2 electrodes. And but the most things of all, I must say, I love the ability to use remote treatment. So I don't need to put it on the skin. I can just put it near the skin, and it's going to stimulate and unclog informational pathways. I think this is a tremendous step ahead. In my view, you revolutionized, you took the scanner type of technology on the next level. And I tell you, the already results I'm getting with this, phenomenal, fantastic. Something which would take a while for me to use with Interrex, for example, another type of scanner device, I can get this a lot faster resolution.
Could you
So,
tell us one of those stories?
Well, the story would be concerning me, first of all, because I was traveling and I got the cold, I don't know, some kind of virus, whatever. And I just used the settings on the wellness, which cold and flu. And what was amazing, first I used the immune settings and I was stimulating the immune zones, and I didn't see any change with my cold. But the minute I start using settings, preset of frequency for cold and flu, I literally, within the next 5 minutes, my symptoms like blocked nose, the desire to sneeze, I just stop like it never was there. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, with CFI, that's CFI, that stands for colds, flu, immunity. That's which is it? That's ET6, isn't it? But that's basically the one programmed into my health. But as long as you catch it early enough, in those first 2 days, it'll just stop it. I mean, if you're all the way in, it's streaming, it'll reduce the time you have it, but you're pretty far in. But if you catch it early, it'll stop it in its tracks.
Well, I know exactly what you mean, because I use all my devices immediately. The first tingle in the ear, I run and straight away get it. And then I stop. Everybody's ill around me. I never ill. That's normally my story. And then I also used this device with a patient of mine, and she had a flu, and for 3 weeks she was just feeling so tired. And also as a result of it, she had a really foggy head, like she couldn't think straight and everything. So I gave her treatment, and I also used my health device with the presets. This time I followed the guidance from the software, and needless to say, half an hour after treatment, she just says, "Oh my God, I'm a different person. I can see clear. My brain functions. My focus gone." It was fantastic. I'm so grateful to you for creating this device and taking it to next level.
It's a lot of fun, and thank you for training everybody. So on that note, what normally happens when you train people? Because you're coming to Park City - Salt Lake City. We haven't booked the venue, but basically on the 18th and 19th of May, we'll run a training in some hotel in Salt Lake. But what can people expect from your training?
Oh gosh, guys, there's a lot to learn. A lot to learn, not only about the body, but particularly how this technology interfere with the body. And I'm going to teach you a technique, because there are so many techniques you can use. How to control neuropathic pain, for example. How to have the soft tissue release. How to do soft tissue release using this device. And the variety, I mean, there are different therapeutic approaches. You can also learn a little bit more about the physics of the device and understand, because the reason why I want you to know this, knowledge empowers you. So with your understanding, deep understanding of this technology, what you're going to decide on the spot what you should do with your patient. That will be your processes which come as a result of your personal experience plus understanding of what you do. And in this case, you're going to get very quick resolution, and people will be flocking to your clinic because they would say, "Oh my God, this person know what she's or he's doing." So I am really excited. I love what I do, and I sincerely going to pass everything I know to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And, the other big event of the year is Zenergy, which is on the 3rd to the 5th of October in Denver. Obviously, that's not a dedicated My Health training, but Zulia is going to be speaking for an hour. We don't quite know what. I guess we haven't worked that bit out, but I know Zulia is going to go very deep into. I think she'll bring up case histories and just show exactly what this technology can do. I think what would be really cool. We should actually demo it, and you could treat people from the audience live on stage. That would be fun. I think let's do that. Let's do that.
That would be fun if they don't mind.
I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of volunteers.
Okay.
So that's brilliant. Is there any last words that you think people should know on this podcast?
I just want to tell you that we guys here, we're on a big mission because there is a change, there is a transformation going on in the whole world, in the world of medicine as well. So we're shifting from mentality that one pill can cure all. We're shifting from mentality, and our patients should go with the shift with us. And here you are. you need to do educational work. You need to lead your patient in this process, to take responsibility for your own health. You need to empower them to do it. And with your knowledge and with your care, I think we could do this. I think we could transform the world for the better place.
I entirely and utterly know that physics is going to be at the heart of healing. Well, that's how I would put it. And the physics-based or energy-based approach. I mean, it may not happen in 2, 3, 4 years, but within 10 years, a third of the world is going to be doing this. Within 20 years, everybody is going to be doing it, and it's going to take its exact equal. I say equal place. It's honestly superior because of its costs less. It's more effective. There's no toxicity. You don't have to worry what weird chemical reactions are happening in your body from taking all these gazillions of things. That world is going to happen. And I think, to your point, change happens faster than any of us really perceive it. And you're going to hear from it first, basically, on this podcast at Zenergy, and coming to being part of the Energy for Life Nest Health community.
I totally agree, and I stand by it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very, very much, Zulia. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know everyone's going to be really looking forward to meeting you in person at one of those two events. And of course, also Zulia is doing regular webinars. So if you want to learn, she's taking people through education on My Health, I believed. Well, I'll just make up a link to register on Zulia's webinars. It would be neshealth.com/Zulia. How about that? We've made up a link.
Great. We'll have fun.
All right. Well, thank you. If you enjoyed this episode and any of the other episodes in the Zenergy series, remember, you can hear from all of the speakers in these episodes live at Zenergy in Denver, October 3rd to the 5th. All you have to do is purchase your ticket at zenergy2024.com. I really look forward to meeting you in person.